Tonight, showing Russian soldiers coming under fire. I warn you, as we always want to do here, it is graphic. I'll show you now. These are heavily armed Russian soldiers that you see on your screen, hiding, trying to stay out of view of Ukraine's drones. They're spotted, though, and targeted. Now, according to Ukraine, 2 of the men were killed. And a Russian state television war correspondent who is embedded with Russian troops tonight posting, claiming that the private Russian army, the Wagner Group, is making progress in the ongoing fight for Bakhmut, but still can't declare victory months after the brutal and intense fighting began in the city. The Russian correspondent saying, and I quote him, "The enemy," he's referring to Ukraine, "is already plowing a new road through the fields in order to provide supplies to both Bakhmut and its outskirts. The Kyiv regime's artillery is constantly working, both on the front line and close to the rear. The Wagner PMC fighters do not have a large quantity of ammunition." And this, of course, is not good. Well, not good for Putin, but pretty incredible, right? This is Russian state TV, pro-Russian, right, with that very significant admission. They don't have enough ammo. Well, not good for Putin, and neither is the morale of Russians whose sons and husbands and loved ones are on those front lines right now without the ammo, without the training. Tonight, we have this new video. This is a group of mothers. They address Putin by name, and they tell the Russian president, they're doing this publicly, that he is failing his people.
It's not a secret that no proper clothing, weapons, or provisions were issued to them. Medical care leaves much to be desired. It has been over a year that our guys have been in service, and over all this period of time, they've been given neither leave of absence nor holiday. Combat assault requires special training, which they did not undergo. Prior to their dispatchment, they spent only 2 to 3 days on the military training range.
And you see them, right? One speaking, but surrounded. You know, as we've seen sometimes from the Russian soldiers who speak out, there's a speaker, but they make sure that they're surrounded to show that there are others in solidarity. And this protest from these angry mothers inside Russia, where they could be jailed for what they're saying, for speaking out, is significant. I mean, the pressure inside Russia comes as we're getting new video of Ukraine taking out a devastating weapon that Putin has been using to inflict mass casualties on the front lines. You've heard about the thermobaric weapons from day one, but here you see Ukraine targeting a Russian multiple rocket launcher system that is equipped with those thermobaric weapons. And we've talked about them from the beginning of the war because they're horrific. They're banned under the Geneva Convention for a reason. They suck the oxygen out of an area. So if there is one that detonates, it literally rips the oxygen out of people's lungs and causes it to rupture. It is a horrific way to die. It's banned by the Geneva Convention, and Russia has been using it in Ukraine. So Ukraine taking that one out. And Putin's forces, of course, are suffering major losses on the battlefield. However, he is still fighting, and he is celebrating a big win tonight. Tonight, the government of Switzerland announcing it will not confiscate Russian assets, saying it's unconstitutional to do so. Now, this is a significant development because Russian oligarchs do store massive amounts of money still in Switzerland. The notoriously secret government there even acknowledging up to $48.5 billion of Russian money is in Swiss banks. And just to say this out loud, this isn't the money of everyday Russians. Switzerland is where oligarchs and Putin's inner circle have long played. It's the reported home of Putin's ex-wife, Ludmila, which is nestled there. We've highlighted it at the base of a mountain in Davos, where, of course, the powerful and rich just recently met. And according to the Wall Street Journal, Putin's girlfriend, the Russian Olympic gymnast Alina Kabaeva, has resided in a high-walled mansion near Geneva. Switzerland now still says it's committed to supporting Ukraine. But the reality is that money is what is fueling Putin's major new offensive. It is what will buy and produce more ammunition if they can do it. It is what will fuel an offensive that could very well include a new front from Belarus. The Financial Times reporting that Western intelligence shows Russian aircraft gathering at the Belarusian border with Ukraine, signaling what could be a major, and they say an imminent, air offensive. Fred Pleitgen is out front. He is in Minsk, Belarus tonight. And Fred, you had rare access to the border between Belarus and Ukraine today. This is the border that all eyes around the world are on to see what Putin is really gathering, what's happening there. You were there. What did you see?
Yeah, and so much concern on the Ukrainian side about that border. And, you know, Aaron, I was just on the Ukrainian side of that border a couple of weeks ago, and the Ukrainians really are worried that Putin could use Belarus once again as a launch pad for attacks on Ukrainian territory. So, of course, every chance we have, we need to try and get into that border area. Now, the access that we got today was part of a Belarusian government-organized trip with all the restrictions that entails, but we certainly get some pretty interesting insights. Here's what we saw.
As Russian forces ramp up their assault in eastern Ukraine, Kyiv believes the Kremlin's massive spring offensive may already be well underway. And Russian President Vladimir Putin could again use Belarus as a launching pad for attacks. On a visit organized by the Belarusian government, we saw the Ukrainians aren't taking any chances.
The Belarusians say from their side this border crossing is open, but you can see over there that's Ukrainian territory, and over there that crossing is definitely shut. There's several layers of barbed wire and also earth mounds to make sure no one can get through.
Russia launched its main thrust towards Kyiv through Belarus almost a year ago, penetrating all the way to the gates of Ukraine's capital before its forces were decimated and retreated. Today, the situation at the Belarusian-Ukrainian border remains tense. Although this crossing is usually calm, even here, some trolling. The Ukrainians fly the white, red, white flag of the Belarusian opposition on their side of the border, one of the many provocations the Belarusians say, and they've beefed up their own forces here.
Mainly, border guard units have been expanded. If before it was 2 people, now it's 3 or 5. The armament and equipment were also updated.
Belarus says all the measures they're taking here are purely defensive. But Minsk recently conducted large-scale Air Force drills with the Russian military, and the U.S. believes Russia is amassing aircraft near Ukraine's border. Putin recently hinting he's even considering placing nukes into Belarus.
I consider it possible to continue the implementation of the President of Belarus's proposals on training the crews of combat aircraft of the Army of Belarus, which have been converted for the possible use of air-launched ammunition with a special warhead.
Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko acknowledging he needs Putin.
Let's be honest. Are we capable alone, without Russia, to defend our sovereignty and independence? We are not.
In the towns near the Belarusian-Ukrainian border, the war next door weighs heavily.
It makes me cry, of course. It is scary. You are afraid for the people there, and of course you want to influence the situation somehow. But I am an ordinary person.
Others fully in Putin's corner. I ask this man if he thinks Belarus should support Russia.
We are one nation with Russia. We absolutely should help them.
For now, all is quiet at the Belarusian-Ukrainian border. A nervous calm folks here hope will hold somehow.
You know, Aaron, for the moment, both the Ukrainians and the U.S. believe that the Russians don't have enough ground forces here in Belarus right now to launch a ground offensive. But they also say that missile attacks, for instance, and drone attacks are very much being launched from Belarusian territory towards Ukraine. Now, the next big event that we're going to be looking at is Friday, when Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko is going to be in Russia speaking with Vladimir Putin there. And we'll see then how things move forward and whether or not Belarus will be drawn even deeper into this war. Aaron?
All right, Fred Pleitgen, thank you very much. There's that crucial reporting there and on the border and, of course, tonight from Minsk. Out front now, retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton and Nina Khrushcheva, the great-granddaughter of Nikita Khrushchev, the former premier of the Soviet Union. She is also professor of international affairs at the New School. So thanks very much to both of you. Colonel, let me start with you. So Fred just showing us what's happening in Belarus. And as he's very clear to say, you don't just go to Belarus and film what you want to film, right? I mean, you know, this was a government-allowed tour. But nonetheless, he had eyes on the ground where really no one from the West has eyes on the ground. So how concerned should Ukraine be about what's happening in Belarus and about this amassing, is the word that's being used, of Russian Air Force in Belarus?
Oh, I think they should be very concerned, Aaron. And the reason for that is that Belarus was a launching pad for the initial invasion last year.
Right.
And when you look at that, you see that this is not going to be a ground movement, it looks like, because there are no really Russian formations that are showing up there on the ground, Russian infantry formations or anything like that. But there are air formations that are showing up. And the way that Putin and Lukashenko have spoken about this, it's very clear that they intend to use Belarusian airspace to launch missiles against the Ukrainians.
So, Nina, when in the context here is, of course, Putin rushing to do this. And we hear, obviously, the Russian state media reporter talking about ammunition shortages. There are issues on the ground, and we're well aware of those. But at home, those Russian mothers that we saw, we've heard complaints, but they were very clear, right? Gathering in a group and very critical of how their children are being treated. Here's a little bit more of what they said, and they did use Putin's name directly. Here's what else they said to him.
Some of the men on the front lines are suffering from fever and wounds. They've neither been seen by doctors nor referred to health specialists when requested to resolve their ongoing health condition.
I mean, they're going through the detail, saying that their sons only had 2 days on a shooting range to even go there. No medical supplies. They can't come home. Do their words at this point signal anything to you?
Oh, absolutely. And the fact that it's shown on state TV, or the fact that it's being reported by Russian correspondents, the war correspondents, it's very important, because what the government is now doing, what Putin is now doing, is to say, look, we've never been in this position. We haven't done war since 1945, since World War II, and we understand it's difficult. We're trying to change it. We're trying to make it better, but they're not hiding it. And it's very important, because that's how Putin thinks he's going to get ahead of the game, admitting mistakes, saying, yes, it is all horrible, but it's for the good of the nation, and we're trying to fix it. In fact, very loudly and quite often he goes around, or he meets with his officials, and he says, well, now my order is you take care of all the problems. The problems need to be solved. In all the regions, they need to be solved.
Right.
The governors of the regions go to the front lines and talk to the soldiers. So they try to stay ahead of it in order to say, this is our problem for the whole country, and we are going to be victorious.
And then, of course, the complaints still come, right? At some point, there's only so much you can say, oh, I'll help you solve it, when it doesn't resolve. And I guess that's the big question in the context, Colonel, of what that state media correspondent posted today, right? Which is, oh, don't worry, we're going to win Bakhmut, but the Wagner Group doesn't have enough artillery.
Right. And if the Wagner
ammunition. And
right.
By the way, they also have issues with artillery and tanks and other things, but specifically ammunition.
Yeah, that's really their Achilles heel, if you will, there. And when you see that problem, the very fact that they can't supply even their elite, even though it's private in quotation marks, Wagner
right.
Group, that is really going to be a real problem for them. There's only so much papering over that you can do. And, what Nina was saying is this is the perfect way to try to obfuscate what's going on, except if you don't have the resources, no matter what you say, it's going to be a real problem to actually make it real and provide the kinds of things that society needs.
Can I add something on the Wagner? So Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner, he keeps talking about the fact that it's not as hunky-dory as that the government officials are saying. He comes out very, very publicly and saying it's not going to take 5 seconds. It's going to take another month or a few months. If the war is to be won, it's going to take another year or 3 years. So even those rogue military groups come out and say it's a difficult fight. It's a difficult fight. Be prepared.
And now, when you talk about Putin, you've met him, and you've interacted him, but you've seen a real change. A person that you say used to be actually come off as incredibly charming is now, it seems, completely different and also so isolated.
Well, 22 years in power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. When he came in, he was a scrawny young man who didn't even know how to dress well, and he loved intelligentsia, and that's how I met him. But after all these years in the Kremlin, all the world leaders, the attention that he gets even today, we say, oh, it's not going well, but look, everybody discussing him. Somebody of that stature, somebody of being lieutenant colonel. He wasn't even a KGB general. He was a very, very small rank. You know what it is. Mm-hmm. Very small rank. So now we all talk about him. For him, it's a great victory. It's going to, he's spreading his, of course, he is now very ossified. In fact, he now has a car, the rail car, which is completely protected from everything, which, by the way, now the joke, it's a bad joke in Russia, is that, oh, he's just like Stalin, who never went to the front, but he had this protected car. So he's really even playing in this very traditional autocratic leaders like Joseph Stalin was in World War II.
And the Tsars also had their rail cars. It goes all the way back to that.
But Stalin is something that there is even a museum in which this car is standing, and you can visit.
All right. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And next, the breaking news. We are just learning exclusively that the FBI has searched the University of Delaware for more classified documents belonging to President Biden. The special counsel investigating Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election right now is also, we are learning, battling the former president in at least 8 secret court cases, either battering Trump. So what is Trump trying to keep private? Both of these stories moving forward right now. As we speak, we'll have the details next. Plus, Ron DeSantis' latest culture wars escalating tonight as parents take their anger over his attack on an AP course straight to...
They want to get rid of all AP classes, and that would greatly disadvantage everybody in Florida.
And graphic details emerging tonight about how one man survived for more than 7 days in the rubble after that massive earthquake, what he was forced to drink in order to stay alive.
I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Jean Twenge is a psychology professor at San Diego State University.
Teen depression doubled between 2011 and 2019.
This week on Chasing Life, I called her up and asked if we could sit down and chat. You believe that smartphones play a role in all of that?
I do, particularly social media.
Listen to Chasing Life on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or your favorite podcast app.
Breaking news right now on 2 major Justice Department investigations. First, CNN learning exclusively that the FBI has searched the University of Delaware in connection with the investigation into Biden's handling of classified documents. Also breaking right now, special counsel Jack Smith is locked in at least 8 secret court battles right now. 8. And every single one of them is in connection to former President Trump's actions after the 2020 election. And they are hugely consequential. Evan Perez and Paula Reed are out front breaking this story. Paula, let me start with you first, because I know you literally have just been able to confirm this, that you've been working on this story. What are you learning about the new search for Biden classified documents?
Aaron, we have learned that the FBI has conducted 2 searches at the University of Delaware in connection with the ongoing special counsel investigation into possible mishandling of classified materials at multiple locations connected to President Biden. Now, we've learned that these 2 searches happened on 2 different days and focused on 2 different locations. One of the searches focused on the Senate archive that is hosted by the university. The president formally donated many papers related to his time in the Senate to the university. Now, the second search, we're told, focused on materials that he has sent to the university in recent years. Now, we've learned that investigators did retrieve some documents from the university, but none of them appeared to have classified markings. But, Aaron, they're still being reviewed, and that process takes some time. Now, a spokeswoman for the president's attorney declined to comment and referred all questions to the Justice Department. The Justice Department declined to comment, and the University of Delaware has not responded to our outreach. But this is significant, Aaron, because, of course, this is yet another location connected to President Biden that has been searched in the course of this ongoing special counsel investigation.
All right. Thank you very much, Paul. And, of course, significant in that context. And as Paula says, there is a special counsel in the Biden classified documents situation, and there is one in the Trump classified documents. And on that, let's go to Evan Perez, because you have new reporting on Jack Smith, the special counsel in the Trump investigations for the DOJ, and these secret court battles that he's locked in right now, a lot of them, and a lot of really important ones.
Right. We're talking about at least 8 of these proceedings that at least we've been able to determine. And, you know, thanks to our team, Casey Gannon, who sits at the courthouse, and Caitlin Polans, we've been able to learn a little bit about what these things are about, because the special counsel is trying to keep a lot of this under seal in secret. And a lot of this obviously has to do with the fact that we're dealing with a litigious person. This is Donald Trump, and he is fighting over a number of things. I'll give you just a couple of them. The one we learned just a couple of days ago. video about Evan Corcoran, his lawyer, who was brought before the special counsel. Before the grand jury, the special counsel is trying to get him to answer questions that have to do with his interactions with Donald Trump, his client, obviously. There's also another proceeding to try to get access to information from Scott Perry, Representative Scott Perry's cell phone, another thing that's also under seal. All of these things are now playing out, Aaron, behind the scenes, under seal. The special counsel has actually argued that it is because of the public interest, the extensive public interest in these matters, that some of this should be kept secret, which sort of takes transparency and turns it on its head. I will note that the Justice Department regulations do allow the special counsel to tell the public, because of the extraordinary nature of this investigation and the fact that they're writing new law with every single one of these cases, that they should be able to explain a lot of this to the public. But it looks like we're going to have to wait a lot longer for the judge who's overseeing the grand jury to reveal a lot more about this. Aaron?
All right, Evan, thank you very much. All that breaking news from Evan and Paula. Let's go to Ryan Goodman out front right now. So let's start here with Evan, since he just was talking about these 8 court battles. They're secret, but they're very important because what they do get could transform this. What they don't get could stymie it. So what do you make of this?
So I think there's a clock that's running down, and the special counsel needs to, at some point, in let's say the next 4 months, make up his mind, is he going to seek an indictment? And if you've got all of these ongoing secret court battles, they could extend the clock well beyond those 4 months. And I think that's what he has to make as a decision. At some point, do I just go for it? If I'm going to have an indictment, indict, and not try to settle all of these issues? How badly do I need Scott Perry's cell phone, for example? Right.
So he has to make choices, but obviously fighting in eight different levels make a big difference. So now Paula talking about a search of yet another location for President Biden. Now, she said they retrieved a lot. They haven't given any indication of any classified documents being found yet, right? They're still looking, but that's where her reporting is right now. But what do you make of that under that special counsel, that they're still searching more locations?
So I think it makes sense that they want to search everything, especially for national security reasons, not necessarily criminal reasons.
Right.
Are there any other classified documents out there in the wild or sitting at a university? And in some ways, it's good news for President Biden, not only that they have not yet found or haven't seemed to have found documents with classified markings, but that they're searching these places. It seems that it's based on cooperation. They don't have probable cause that there's evidence of a crime at the University of Delaware. So
it's just like, hey, we want to look, and they say, okay.
That's right. Which is just as Pence has done, but it's a sharp contrast with President Trump.
Now, Pence has done, but when it comes to the DOJ investigation of January 6th, of course, Pence wouldn't testify to the committee, and now he's testifying to the grand jury, which is very significant. You had said that if he claimed executive privilege, there's no there. Trump's trying to claim that on his behalf, but what Pence is claiming is separation of powers. Hey, on that day, I was head of the Senate, so that's a separation of powers issue at the DOJ. Is there any there?
There's there this time.
There's there. Okay, there's there. So you think this could work for him?
Yeah, legal scholars may debate, was he actually a part of the Senate on January 6th as the president of the Senate? But the Department of Justice under Attorney General Garland in August of 2021 took the position that he does have this speech and debate clause immunity for January 6th, but then that doesn't mean that he can't answer a bunch of other questions. So the idea that he can say, I'm not going to even show up, that doesn't make sense. The idea that he can say, there's certain lines of questions I won't answer, he's got an argument.
Right. And of course, if they pertain to that day, that is extremely significant.